So I've gone ahead and checked all of the resistors in the amp to compare versus the schematic and see which ones need to be ordered for the second order. And most of them are pretty close. Looks like most of the resistors have been replaced, but there are a few that are quite off. So I'm going to quickly go through the ones that I found that are off from the schematic. So starting with this little resistor on the bias pot. This should be a 27K according to the schematic, and we can see it's about 15K. So I'm not really sure. It looks like obviously that was replaced, but I'm not really sure if that means the pot wasn't able to get enough adjustment or if it's all thrown off because they had the wrong rectifier tube. I'm not sure, so we'll have to explore that later. Let's see, another one that was off is right here. Make sure I'm in the right spot, yeah. So this resistor is supposed to be an 82K, and it is reading 1.3 mega ohms, so significantly off, not even remotely close. I don't know the color code, how to read the color bands by heart, so I'm gonna have to look that up after to see what that actually is supposed to be. But yeah, it's not even close. So 82K versus 1.3, or yeah, 1.3 mega ohms. Huge difference. That's definitely gonna have to be replaced. Have to get a new order for that. Another one I had, can't believe it was this one. It's kind of hard to reach. So this resistor is supposed to be a 820 ohm and it reads 94. So that one is also quite a bit off. It's kind of stuck under the blue molded cap there, so a little hard to see. So these 220Ks right here, they both measured over 250K. So those are, I would consider borderline, but I'll probably end up replacing those. Here's another one. This one wasn't super far off, but still was off. So this is supposed to be a 220K and it's measuring 166K. And then this one right next to it is supposed to measure 410K and it measures 174K. So quite a bit off there. I think that might be it. Oh, sorry, there's one more way over here. This is supposed to measure, looks like 1500K, and it measures 4.7K. So those all need to be replaced. I'm gonna have to make a second order for those. No big deal, so I'll get those resistors ordered and everything else should be good to go. I checked the screen and plate resistors here on the power tubes and they both checked out just fine. Those look like they were recent replacements. They're not discolored and they both were spot on what they're supposed to be. So those will stay. All right, now we wait for the parts. So the first shipment has arrived. Let's go through the parts I got. I got a few more shipments coming, mainly with resistors, but here's what I've got. 3-prong power cord, gotta have that. New strain relief, bunch of caps. So these are all 22 microfarad, 500 volt F&T caps. I got a few extras just to have. Those will be replacing the caps in the Doghouse. Even if they're good, I just don't think they were installed very well and I'd rather just have peace of mind and do it myself. Some more caps. This is a little Sprague, 25 microfarad, 25 volt. So this one will be going to replace this cap right here. Got a 100 microfarad, 100 volt F&T that will be replacing the bias cap right here. This is a, what is it, 330 picofarad cap, I think. Let me look at my, yep, 330 picofarad ceramic disc cap. This will be going in to replace right here, which I believe is for the reverb. This is a 0.002 microfarad cap, which is not the right value for that. So this is the closest I could find to what the schematic calls for. I don't have it in front of me, but that was the closest I could find. Some more caps here. These are 25 microfarad by 50 volts. These little caps. I got these just because they're so cheap, just to have on hand as extras. These would be replacing these light blue caps here. However, I don't really like the look of these. The silver, it just kind of stands out to me. I'd rather it just looks nothing like it should, in my opinion. So they're kind of a backup. What I bought primarily to replace these caps here, these pairs, is this F&T 25 microfarad by 25 volts double caps. There's two of them in one. And I had no idea this was going to be so big. I don't understand why in the world this is such a large cap. Again, for reference, this F&T is equivalent to two of these little mod caps here. They are functionally identical if put together side by side. Meanwhile, the F&T is like, I don't know, 8-10 times the size. I don't understand why that is. So the original caps that would have been here are also quite large, the double caps. If you look at vintage photos or ones of vintage examples that are untouched, they're really large, kind of orange, cardboard exterior caps. These are even bigger than those. So I have two of them. I meant to buy three, but somehow accidentally bought two. Maybe a blessing in disguise. But yeah, so they would be going right there, and right there. It is a tight fit under this. I believe it will fit, but it's going to be tight, which is like the originals were. They were pretty tight. But I'm more concerned about the leads. So they have to be basically, I don't know, basically a 90-degree angle to be able to get into the eyelets here. To see that, I mean, basically straight down to fit. So I guess if I put this one here, you can kind of get an idea. So the eyelets are basically right at the end of the cap, so they'd have to go straight down. I think it'll work. I'm going to try it because I bought them. And if it works, I'll buy a third. If it doesn't, I'll figure out what I'm going to do. Temporarily, I could put these in. I just really don't like the way they look. I think these look a lot better. I like the black caps. They're, more subtle. So that's those. What else did I grab? Oh, can't forget this. So I did pick up a blue molded cap. So I mentioned these two are replaced blue molded caps, or these were blue molded caps, these two right here. So one of them would be a 0.1 and one of them would be a 0.047. So I picked up a 0.1, which would go there, and it's got plenty of lead length, so that'll be perfect. And then the death cap is a 0.047 blue molded. You can't see it from where you're at right now, but it's right here under the switch and under the ground switch. And that should be perfect. So I believe I will be able to basically recycle that blue molded that would otherwise have no use and put it here, and we'll be able to restore the vibrato channel to have the blue molded tone caps, which should be great. So I feel like that was worth the investment to get it dialed in. I only needed one to get it all back to how it should have been. And then last but not least, just some resistors. I got a lot more resistors coming, but what did come in, I've got some Vichy. These are 2 watt. What are these? 2 watt, 470 ohm. I've got some just backup metal oxides. These are 10K ohm, 1 watts. Then I've got some carbon comps here, 10K and 470 ohm. So I can't remember exactly where these are supposed to go. I guess I can pull up the schematic and look real quick, but I believe it was where the main electrolytics are in the Doghouse as one option, and then I believe these resistors were another option in case they were bad. Usually those have drifted a lot, but they measured perfect. So as of right now, they're staying, but I do have some of these. So that's about it. Now let's go ahead and flip the amp over, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the caps in the Doghouse as the first place to work on the amp and get that all dialed in. So as mentioned before, these are probably fine, but I just really don't like how they were installed, and I kind of want the practice of swapping these. So that's the plan. We're going to go ahead and remove all of these caps and resistor. I think I'm just going to remove everything off of the board here, make sure it's all sorted underneath because I don't know what that looks like. This is quite wavy now. It's definitely had a lot of movement to the board over the years. So I just want to make sure everything's looking okay. And then we will redo it all and just make it really fresh and nice. So first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead, try and lift up the legs of these resistors, these caps. Now I was going to say there's a chance that they used the leg of the cap to run under the board. I've seen that before, but that doesn't look to be the case here. It's almost like they cut the leads too short on these, and instead of just using new caps, or or maybe this is all he had, the previous tech, and he didn't have the right ones for this, so he just kind of made it happen. Obviously not ideal. Maybe it was a case of, oh, they had to get the amp out. It was a rush job or something, but either way, not ideal, so definitely worth redoing. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen up these screws now, just so I can lift it up and see what is what underneath, just in case things are wrapped in a weird way. I don't want to break anything. So it looks like I'm going to have to remove the wires, which is no big deal. Again, I've never worked with one of these before, so I'm not really sure what to expect. So figuring out a little bit as I go. Wow, what a mess. Now I'm going to go ahead and just take a photo of everything so I remember where everything goes, and then lift the board up and clean out all of the solder left in these spots and put in some fresh solder. And I'll put these resistors off to the side, and let me measure them real quick. I can't remember. I think these are supposed to be 10K. If I remember correctly. Yeah, they're supposed to be 10K, but I purchased 10K 1-watt carbon comps to replace these, so no big deal. I can decide to keep them or not. This will all get trashed. Yeah, that looks pretty rough. There's like this cylinder here. I don't know what that is. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I'm going to redo all of these because they look pretty bad. Lots of excess solder, you can see that. It'd be easier to hit it from the bottom as well. So, okay, we're making progress. So I've got this elevated now. I'm going to go ahead and cut the bus wire here to make it a bit easier to pop out, and then we'll clean out all of the different eyelets or whatever you call these. And then we'll be able to reassemble and make it look a lot prettier. I don't know what's going on here. Just a giant cylinder of solder maybe? I don't really know. So we'll see what lies underneath. Wow, yeah. Look at that, crazy. One more to go, and then we'll clean up all of these little eyelets. Actually, a pretty effective way to get it. All right, those all look pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and just clean off the board. I've heard that you can use rubbing alcohol, isopropyl. So I'm going to go ahead and try that on this and just clean it up a little bit, both sides. And then we'll go ahead and add the bus wire back. And yeah, and then get those F&T caps added. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and take a light little Sharpie and mark down just so I don't forget the spots. So bridge there, bridge there, bridge there, bridge there. So there, 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 there. And we'll go ahead and flip it over. And I'll make sure to leave that, but clean this up a little bit. All right, so now we can go ahead and add in the bus wire and add in the caps and then solder it all together. So there's a little bit of excess solder I'm going to pull out on this side, but we're nearly there. Not really sure what the best way to do this is. Better to go a bit longer, then I can always cut it shorter. So I'm just going to bend it over. Bend it over. Crimp it. So super solid connection there. Got a little bit of excess, but I can cut that off. In fact, I will cut off right here. Perfect. So there's the first one. All right. Making sure there's a little bit of room for that screw right there. I think we'll be okay. Cutting it a little close, but I think it's fine. So those are all done. Now we can go ahead and add in the capacitors. Went like this. Just making sure I have everything in the right spot. So let's go ahead and grab our capacitors. I decided to go ahead and clean up all of this old flux. If I'm doing it, I might as well really do it. So, all right, so it's definitely better. It's not perfect, but definitely better. So we'll take that. I think we can go ahead and move forward with installing the caps. So now I'm just gonna go and put them in to get it started. I'll add some silicone on the end of them to hold them in place a bit better. And yeah, then we can start soldering again. So we've got the resistors here. These are 1 watt carbon comps. Let's go ahead and see what they measure. These are supposed to be 10K, so that's 8.75K. That's 9.12K, so that's not too bad. The other ones were the originals, or I don't know if these are original or not, but the ones that were in it, I believe are both around 12K, 12.5K. So these are actually more out of spec than the new ones, but the new ones are lower and these ones are higher. I think it's just going to be easier to work with brand new leads. So I'm going to put these aside. Maybe these are super fancy resistors that people are going to yell at me for not including, but I can always pop them back in if needed. But I think I'm going to go ahead and move forward with these. All right, that looks good. So those are in there. Let me just confirm that's where they're supposed to go. All right, now we can go ahead and start adding in the caps. So positive will be facing me away from the tubes. Perfect. All right, now we can go ahead and start placing them. I think I'm going to put it on the bottom side of them and then just kind of slide them into place. So we'll try that. I don't have a ton of room here. Apologies if you guys can't really see what I'm doing. Shouldn't require much. That should be fine. Positive facing me. Try and make sure it's centered. Looks pretty good. Then we'll just fold the legs over. Perfect. That's one down. All right, there you go. There is the caps all set up, ready for solder. So now we're just going to go ahead and run the wires, and we should be good to go to start soldering. Nearly there. Almost forgot. Of course, I want to snip off these extra leads. So let's go ahead and do that now. Then I'm just going to crimp even more with my fingernail here. All right, so those are super sturdy on there. Everything looks good. Looks like it was a job done by somebody that cares, which is what I'm going for, of course. So now let's go ahead and feed the wires through. Beautiful. There we go. Now let's go ahead and screw this board back on, and then we will go ahead and solder everything. Try and set these up with a little bit of a hook so that they have a really good connection. All right, we're on the last one here. Not a lot of room in this little eyelet. So now we can go ahead and start soldering. I'm gonna get these first so then I can move the cable out of the way. All right, so now we are ready to go ahead and solder. Now, I should be able to get it all from this angle. So let's see. Just let me clean off the tip. You guys will have to rate my soldering at the end of this. Tell me what I can do to improve. All right, that looks pretty good. Hit this one more time. This one was a bit tricky the first go around. There we go. That looks better. Okay, perfect. So I think we are good to go. Get all these wires tucked a bit more on the board here. Everything looks good. Let me grab the camera and I'll show you guys a close-up of the solder joints. You can go ahead and judge me on them. And there's the finished product. Looks pretty good to me. Okay, so Doghouse cover back on. That I'm calling good. Parts we took out, these Sprague atom caps, these are surprisingly light. They feel like they weigh nothing. These 450 volt 22 microfarad caps, and then these two resistors. So that's the first haul, as well as all of the bus wire, obviously. So all of those are going to baggie, and yeah, then we move on to the other side of the amp. So that'll be for tomorrow.